Overall, in this section, we've covered a lot about studying. And for the most part, you're already far ahead of many other exam takers and certification exam takers in general, because most people are often told to go study things, but they don't understand how they should actually study. So let's recap what we've learned about in this section. The first thing that we learned about is the three main types of learning and ways that people are able to study and learn. Remember, we have our visual learning or learning through our sight or seeing things. We have our auditory learning, so learning through hearing things. And finally, we have our kinesthetic learning or our more hands-on learning. Understanding which type of learning fits you best and which you respond to most is going to drastically increase how well you're able to take in certain materials and also how well you're able to study and retain information. For the most part, most people have one main way that they're able to learn, and then the other two are kind of like their side or their alternate ways of learning. But one of the strongest strategies that I've ever used in my entire life for studying is combining different forms of learning. So you can turn almost any form of learning into another form of learning. It's called multiplying your learning style. So for example, if you're watching, say, a course like this one, instead of just watching the course, why not also take notes down on a piece of paper? Get a marker or a pen, a piece of paper, or even a whiteboard or something physical where you can draw and take notes on. And you can also add your little diagrams and your little charts and your little drawings that you think of in your own head. That way you're getting both the video way of learning, the auditory way of learning, and the kinesthetic or the hands-on form of learning. Same thing with a textbook. If I was reading a book, if you told me, hey, Nick, you've got to study through reading, well, I can also take this book and turn it into a not only into a visual form of learning, I could also turn it into an auditory form of learning too. So I could say, introduction. In ancient Greece, it was widely accepted that a single Spartan warrior was worth at least three or even four non-Spartan soldiers. In fact, the discipline of the Spartans was so legendary that they evoked the admiration of even their greatest enemies. And then from there, I could say, okay, I just turned this visual form of learning into an auditory form of learning too. So it's now a hybrid style of learning. We have both visual and auditory. I could also take a highlighter or a marker and mark in the book. As long as you own the book, no one's going to care. It's your book. So I could say, okay, well, this was really, really interesting. I'm going to go ahead and maybe I have a color coding system. Maybe I have a few different colors. Maybe in pink, I'll put things that are very, very relevant to, let's just say, a certain part of exam preparation. And I can start highlighting things. That way, when I go back and I do my reviews, no matter when you do your review, you can make the most of it. This really, really makes it very powerful if you do this hybrid style of learning. And additionally, it allows you to use any sort of study material and turn it into a form of hybrid learning that hits on two or three forms of your learning style. So just keep that in mind. In terms of studying material, we covered almost everything from books and ebooks. We covered PDF study guides. We covered courses just like this one. We covered practice exams. We covered note taking. We covered note cards. We covered a lot of different materials that you can use. Just make sure that you choose the right ones for your specific needs and learning styles. Additionally, when you go out and you buy study materials, make sure that you buy the highest quality and most up-to-date study materials. I've seen countless students buy low quality studying material and fail their exams. And I've even seen students buy study material that was outdated by 4 or 5 years, causing them to understand or to learn old material and fail a new exam. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for any sort of IT or project management or cybersecurity or really any type of certification prep, check out Teach Me It on our website or on Udemy. We offer a lot of different courses. We offer many free high quality courses, and we offer many different paid certification prep, practice exams, different types of study material. Check us out. I promise you, we've got some of the best material out there on the market. In terms of point number 3, what we covered in this section, building your study plan in the right study environment. We went over exactly how you can start using ChatGPT to figure out how long you should be studying, helping you build a study plan, sticking to that study plan. And we also gave you a free Google Sheet that has 2 or 3 different types of Google Sheets or different types of sheets on it rather. And you can also use that same sheet in something like Excel if you prefer Excel. But make sure you pick that up. Make sure you actually build out your study plan, do the research that it takes to figure out how many hours you need, and start building and executing on that study plan. Once you've built your study plan, then it's time to build the perfect testing and exam environment. So we talked about all the tips earlier in this section on how you can build a perfect, quiet, and great study environment that's going to significantly impact your memory retention. Because remember, the place that you study at is going to impact not only how much you learn, but also if you're taking your exam in the same place that you're studying at, you're going to perform significantly better through memory recall. Your brain is going to start associating that information with that physical spot. So if you're able to take your exam in the same place that you can study for your exam at, if your exam allows for remote test taking or remote proctored exams, definitely make sure that you study for your exam in the same place that you plan to take your exam. We also talked about many other factors regarding testing environment and studying environment, like making sure that everyone in your house is aware of what you're doing, your employer's aware of what you're doing, and your different intentions for actually taking your certification exam. The next point here, point number 4 that we covered in this section, is using practice exams strategically in order to pinpoint your weak areas. Many people just take practice exams all willy-nilly, but what I recommend is taking practice exams after you've covered all of the material in your course or book or whatever resource you have for studying, and then taking those practice exams and spreading out at least 3 practice exams across a week or around that in terms of time. So for example, you would take your first practice exam on a Monday, the second one on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and then your final third practice exam on a day like Saturday and Sunday. Now, in between those exam taking sessions, in between those days, that's when you study. So with your first practice exam, make sure you go over your results, make sure you understand your weak areas, and then start studying based off of those weak areas. So go back through, if you used a book or something and you highlighted things, review your highlighted sections, update it with more highlights, with notes in the margin, things like that, and go back and actually use the information that you're getting from the practice exam for your weak areas in order to improve and then correct those exam areas and knowledge areas over time. One more thing I wanted to mention here, because I didn't really cover this as much in the study plan video, but your last week before your exam, so 1 week before your exam, what I recommend people do is I recommend you take your practice exams then, the week before your exam, or around the week and a half, maybe week before, and then you do all of your review during this time too. Keep things light, don't go super crazy. That's why I recommend taking the practice exams, because by that point, you should have almost everything that you need in your memory, and you're just freshening up and sharpening the different areas where you fell behind or where you might be a little bit weaker at. But that final week or week and a half before the exam, don't do a lot of studying. Like, it's not the time a week and a half before to go through and read an entire book or to take a 45-hour course, right? So just keep that in mind when you're building out your study plan. Make sure you account for a week, maybe a week and a half to end your studying and be completely done studying about a week and a half or a week before your exam, because that week before your exam, you're going to brush up, do reviews as needed, and take your practice exams. Lastly, the 5th and final area that we talked about in this section was mastering the mindset for success when you're actually studying. Again, like I talked about earlier, many instructors, they give you exam taking strategy and mindset for the exam, but no one talks about mindset that you need when you're actually studying. And think about it. An exam is usually just an hour, 2, maybe 3 hours, but your exam preparation is going to be about 10 or 20 times longer than the actual exam. So you need the mindset. You need those tips that we talked about, those 4 main tips, in order to actually implement the proper mindset for you to stay on track when studying for your exam and preparing for your certification exam. So keep everything that we talked about in this section in mind, because in the next section, we're going to go into the section and we're going to talk about exam taking strategies, different tips, and different things for actually the exam itself. This was more on the studying side. The next section, we're going to explore more of the test taking side. I'll see you over there.